Hello everyone and welcome to this week's behind the scenes devlog video, and this week I'm going to film all week through. In the last few videos I've kind of just concentrated on showing one specific thing that I was implementing, but this time I thought I'd mix things up and just film everything, show you what my life's like at the moment, and hopefully there'll be some interesting stuff in there somewhere. So it's Monday morning, I'm just about to get started with my day and I will show you what I'm up to in a bit. So it's 11 o'clock and Monday mornings are always a little bit dull. It's mostly admin stuff that I have to do on Mondays. So I've just made my plan for the week. I've been answering some emails. I had to update the game on Steam because there was a bug that needed fixing. And I also uploaded some stuff for the Patreon supporters. But now that that's all done and out of the way, I can get started with my main task for this week, which is to add a new species into Equilinox. So, as you can see, I've been getting started with making two new species for Equilinox this week. I thought that the swamp biome could do with a little bit of love and attention because it doesn't have that many unique species in it. So I decided that the game needed flies, and then because of that I thought it would be quite cool to have a carnivorous plant that could catch the flies. And it's not going to be overly realistic, but I think it's going to catch the flies by sticking out a tongue and grabbing the fly when it flies over it and then pulling it back into its kind of mouth. Yeah, it's just a bit of fun, but it should be quite cool, and that's what I'm going to be implementing throughout this week. £4:15 now, bit of a slow afternoon today. I had to do my weekly food shopping first, and I also got some new plants because I'd managed to kill the old ones again. And I've also been trying to learn about Lightweight Java Game Library 3, because up until now I've always used version 2. When I started Equilinox, version 3 hadn't been released yet. But I definitely want to use Lightweight Java Game Library 3 for all of my future projects, so I've been trying to learn a bit about it this afternoon and just been programming a few simple things with it. To finish off today, I've been back to work on Equilinox, getting the flies loaded up in the game, doing all of their general settings, and you can see a lot of them buzzing around here. I'll get the plants loaded up into the game tomorrow, but this evening I'm going out to meet a couple of friends. We're going to play pool, which I'm terrible at, but hopefully it should be fun. Tuesday morning, and the first thing that I wanted to do today was to get this new plant into the game. So as you can see, I made the models for the young versions and I then exported it from Blender, got it loaded up into Equilinox, and I've also just done all the basic settings for it. And I'm going to be implementing the fly catching behaviour later today, but first this morning there's something else that I want to do, which I will tell you about in a bit. So, as I said yesterday, I've started learning about Lightweight Java Game Library 3, and I've also kind of started planning and doing a bit of programming for a new game engine, because the one that I use for Equilinox I wrote 3 or 4 years ago now, and I've got a lot more experience since then. There are lots of things that I think I did wrong that time. There's so much stuff that I do differently this time, and I've really been kind of looking forward to having a clean slate to work from and create a much better engine this time. So that's what I've kind of started doing today. I've just been programming the very basics so far. So this is something I'm going to keep working on over the next few weeks. But for now I'm going to stop for a lunch break, go for my daily run, and then this afternoon I'll be back to work on the fly catching plants. This afternoon I've been making a start on the fly catching behaviour, and the first thing that I had to do was to give these plants some tongues that could shoot out of their mouths. And you can see that in the game with the tongues popping in and out. All that's happening at the moment is that every couple of seconds I've made the scale of the tongue increase and decrease just using a sine wave function. So obviously it's still very basic, very glitchy. For example, if you have a look at this plant, you can see that the tongue for one frame flickers next to the plant, so I need to fix that at some point. But now I'm going to have some dinner and I'll continue work on this tomorrow. So it's Wednesday morning now, getting straight back to work on the fly catching plants, and there are 3 things that I need to implement to get these to work. Firstly, I need to check whether there's a fly in range of the plant and only shoot the tongue out if there's a nearby fly. Then I need to actually get it to aim the tongue to hit the fly. And finally, I need to make it possible for it to grab the fly and bring it back down into its kind of mouth area. Just been doing a bit of programming and getting the first of those 3 things working, so you can see that the plant now only releases its tongue if there is a nearby insect. And down here, this is the test that I do to check whether a fly is in range, and it basically just tests whether the fly is within an imaginary cylinder which is kind of hovering above the plant. So in the game you can see that working here. Whenever the fly goes within that imaginary cylinder directly above the plant shoots out its tongue in an attempt to catch the fly. Next up, I've been getting the plant to actually aim the tongue so that the tongue hits the fly, and you can see the update method for the tongue here, and every frame you can see that I'm calculating the vector from the plant to the insect, and then I use that vector to update the rotation of the tongue so that it's always pointing towards the fly, and it just took a little bit of trigonometry to get that working. And if I show you how that works in the game, it looks better in slow motion. You can see that the tongue now shoots out in the correct direction, and it stops exactly when it hits the fly. So all that's left to do now is to get the fly to actually stick to the tongue and be pulled back into the flower. 12 o'clock now, and the fly catching behaviour is now pretty much finished. I've just been allowing the plants, or the tongue of the plant, to actually catch an insect, and once it catches the insect, it moves the insect together with the tongue back into the plant's mouth, and it was just some simple maths in the end to get that working. So as you can see in the game, if you watch the plants carefully, they will occasionally shoot out a tongue and grab a fly and put it back into its mouth. So I think I'm going to stop for a quick lunch break now, and I'm also going to do something a little bit different today, which is some painting. I've been kind of getting into painting recently. I just started last week. I'm just trying to learn. I'm not very good yet, but I've been following some tutorials on YouTube and just really enjoying it. So after lunch I'm just going to have a quick go at trying to do another painting. This afternoon I haven't really been working on Equilinox. I've been thinking and planning a bit more for my next project, and I've got about 4 or 5 ideas at the moment that I'm considering, so I was just brainstorming them a bit more and exploring the ideas a bit further, trying to work out which of them is going to be the most feasible and the most interesting and worthwhile. But as I said last week, it's still going to be a little while before I actually start the new project. There's still plenty of stuff that I want to implement into Equilinox first, but I just think it's a good idea to start planning my next steps to some extent at least. Anyway, I think I'm pretty much finished for today, and it's a lovely evening at the moment, so I'm going to get outside quickly and try and make it to the sea in time to see the sunset. This morning I've just been polishing up the fly catching behaviour and finishing it all off. So for example, you can see that I've added a particle effect for when the fly gets eaten. I fixed the 1 frame glitch where the tongue was appearing for 1 frame. Just before it shot out, it was appearing right next to the plant, and that's now fixed. Also, only the fully grown plants can do the tongue shooting behaviour now. I also had to do a bit of balancing to make sure that they don't instantly wipe out the entire fly population. And you might have also noticed yesterday that when the tongue was getting longer, it was also getting thicker, but I fixed that now so that it only scales along one axis, And I've actually made it get a little bit thinner as it gets longer to make it look like it's stretching. Coming up to 4 o'clock now, and this afternoon I've just been working through a list of little tweaks and bug fixes that I wanted to do. So for example, the most interesting one that I implemented was that animals that can fight now have an attack power trait, and this is especially useful for the wolves because people have mentioned that when they go hunting for goats they often end up getting killed after a while because the goats fight back. So now this will allow you to genetically modify the wolves to be a bit stronger and the goats to be a bit weaker, and then they'll be able to hunt the goats happily without getting killed. Last up today, I've been finishing off everything to do with the 2 new species, just making sure their descriptions are all done, setting all the requirements for unlocking them, and I also added in 1 new task to do with catching lots of flies. But for today, I'm pretty much finished, and I'm going out this evening to a friend's birthday party. So that is pretty much going to be it for this video. Today I'm just going to be editing it all together, but before I finish I just need to give a big shout out to the top Patreon supporters from last month, who were Harold Pena, B Jamin, Animo, Charlie Quigley, Danny D, Andrew Witt, Bill Brownell, Marek Mikolajczyk, Timothy Gibbons, Dylan Thompson, Miguel Diaz-Rivas, Alberto Spina, Sean McCrory, Michael Merck and Alexander Chavez. So a massive thank you to you guys, and of course to everyone else supporting me over on Patreon. For this week though, that is it, so thank you guys very much for watching this video. Do subscribe if you haven't already, have a fantastic week, and I will see you all next time.